Have you ever had a data set like this that you needed to create a report out of but didn't know where to start? So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to take a report I found online like this, and I'm going to take you step by step to recreate it in Google Sheets and then plug your numbers in so you can have a slick presentation to give at your next meeting. All right, so let's jump right in. So let's create a dashboard tab real quick here, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag it there. Another thing I'm going to do, because we're going to need to populate a bunch of these numbers, is I'm going to create a helper tab, just like that. So on our dashboard, let's first of all get some of these colors. Let's just start at the top and kind of populate this top part. So I have a little plugin that allows me to pick colors here. And so if you're trying to copy something, that would be the way to go. Otherwise, if you have your own RGB colors for your brand, you can just start directly with that. And then I'm going to select these top couple rows here, and then I'm going to add this as a background color and then a custom color here, and then paste in that hex number there. And there we go. There's our background. And then for the text, you can kind of look for the fonts. The one thing is Google has not all the fonts and you can't really add any more. So you have to find Google fonts basically. But they do have quite a selection, so you should be able to find one at least close to what you're looking for. And so for today, let me go ahead and do a little step here. But today I'm probably going to use this Montserrat font, and I may be butchering the pronunciation of that, but we'll go ahead and go with that. So I'm going to resize a couple of these columns. So just right click and resize. And I'm going to delete the rest of these. So click on this one, scroll over, hold down shift and click that last column there, right click and delete columns. And then I'm going to resize the rest of these. I'll go ahead and start with something like 65 and we'll see if we have to come back and change that later. So let's add these titles here. So marketing report and year end summary. And so I'm just going to merge these across the board here and then hit merge cells. And then we're going to type in marketing report. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for year end summary. All right, so let's do some formatting on these. So it doesn't look like they're quite black. So I need that dark blue, I think, color. There's a couple colors here. So I'm going to pick this dark blue next. And let's set that font color here. Add a new custom color. Paste that one there. And there we go. Now let's get a little bigger and see if that looks right. Now let me horizontally center these here. So center, just like that. And then I'm going to go bigger with this one, maybe something like 30 and bold that. And there we go. We'll go ahead and call that good for now. You may be wondering, with all this lines on here, if that's going to look the same. And so before we go any further, I'm going to show you what it's going to look like when we're done. So we're going to remove the grid lines, and it has a very clean layout. But while we're building this, I like to keep the grid lines visible because it tells me where I can build. Because basically you have to build within the structure of the Google Sheet. So it can be a challenge sometimes, but it's great fun when it all comes together. So next, let's look at our other colors. So we kind of have this color as the background. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that one for now. And then I'm going to make the rest of these that color. So I'm going to come down maybe to around 50 and add that as a background. And then I'm going to delete the rest of these. So I'm going to click on this one, scroll down, hold down shift, click on this one, right click and delete rows. So already it's coming together. So I just need to start populating these sections. And so I will need to calculate some numbers. And I'm going to do that on this helper tab. But let's go ahead and just start from here. This section kind of flows together. So we have our campaign 1, 2, and 3 with the spending and the budget, and then the total here. So let's kind of set up this basic structure first, and then we'll go back, get the numbers, and pull them in. So we go over here on this side, maybe about 3. And then we're going to come down maybe to around here. And we're going to add that darker one there as a background. I think that looks good. And then up here, we're going to add a marketing campaigns expenditure. So let's go ahead and merge these and then type that in. And then probably going to merge this with the one below it. And then I'm going to wrap it so it fits within horizontally and vertically align it. And then change this to probably white. And then I think bold and 1, 2, something like that. Other thing we could do here, since we're going to put our campaign 1, 2, and 3 here, maybe I'll unmerge this. So I use merging a lot to help merge basically the difference when you want a big cell in one place and small ones on another, because you can merge it in one spot and then have 3 smaller ones, right? So in this case, we're probably going to do about the same size. So I'm just going to go ahead and do, I think, campaign 2 and campaign 3. Is that about right? I think. Give a space here, just like that. Campaign 2, campaign 3. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to vertically and horizontally line these, change that font color, bold, and I think that same font, maybe unbold. Yeah, something like that I think looks good. There we go. And then I'm gonna come down a little bit, and then we're gonna add that actual mount. So we have that mount there. So this will be total, this is just a placeholder here. Total amount, and this will be total budget. And then let's go ahead and do that for each one here. So I'm going to horizontally merge these. And then let's go ahead and align those. So then let's just copy and paste that across. And then for all of these, let's go ahead and change it to white. This one I want a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and select all those. Do something like this. I think that should do it. And then this one, maybe we'll actually go a little bit smaller. All right. And then we need our total amount here. So this can't actually go in the chart. So we're going to put it behind it using a simple trick. And so that will go about here. So actual. And then let's go ahead. Actually, I need to undo this. I need to do values only. So that's Control Shift V there. And then we're going to merge that and align that there. And then let's go ahead and copy that across. And again, do the same thing like we did before. Change our font color. We'll go bold and maybe up to 12. Something like that. So we're going to put our pie chart over this. And then this number will show through. So this will actually be a number. We can just do something like this. Just to fill that in. There we go. So we need to come up with these actual amounts for each campaign and then our total budget. So on our data, we have our spent and our budget, but it's by quarter. So we need to combine those. So over on our helper tab, let's go ahead and populate our campaign 1, campaign 2. Let's see if it'll populate campaign 3 there. Yep. And then total. And then over here, we're going to do spent, remaining, and budget. So then over here, we can do a sum ifs, pull from our data, and this first one was spent. So we can do data spent like that for this table reference, where the data campaign is equal to our column here. So there we go, spent campaign B1. Drag it over, there's our amounts. I can change this to a currency. And then I can set this as well. I'm probably not going to spend much time formatting over here because this is just a helper one. So then we can do the same thing. I'm going to copy and paste this down here. I'm double clicking, pasting, just so it doesn't change anything there. And then instead of spent, I'm going to do budget. And there we go. Drag that across. Again, center dollars, decrease decimal places. And then from here, because we don't have the remainder, So I'm just going to calculate it. So this will just be our budget minus our spend. So there's our remainder. And then I can just do a sum here to get the totals. Go ahead and do that. Perfect. So there's our first ones that we need for our dashboard. So let's do this one first. So we can first of all just do it equals, go to our helper and go to a, this is the actual. So let's go to the actual there. So there's our actual, and then our total budget was here. And then we just need a pie chart here. So let's do this. I'm just going to select this. So this is including the spent and remaining. Insert chart. And then change this to a donut chart. And then let's see, there we go. Sometimes if you just toggle this, you'll get what you need. So if you ever look at this and you're like, what is happening? I'm not getting what I need. Try toggling this and then play around with what shows up as your values and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this chart. So copy over here and paste. And then I'm going to delete this one. And then over here, this looks totally off right now. So I'm going to do a couple things. First of all, I'm going to get rid of this title. So just double click and remove. And then at this point, we probably don't need these day levels. So double click in here and let's go to legend and do none. But then let's change the background on this to the same as our dark one. Or actually, let's do none. All right, and then let's just get this chart over here and size down a little bit, just like that. And then it still has this border, which looks really awkward right now. So let's come back over here, customize, and border is none. Now we're looking better. And so now I want these colors to match. So let's come in here and then slice one. Let's scroll down, pick that one. And then for our slice two, we can kind of pick whatever we want here. We can do white if that's what we're looking for or something like that. So I think that is what they have here. There we have those in place. Another thing as well, these ones are a little narrower. So if you want to adjust the size of this donut, if we double click in here and then go to pie chart, you can see the donut hole size. So you can go a little bigger. You can actually even type in here and do a custom one. So maybe 60% looks good. And then we can resize this chart a little bit and center it over that. And then that looks good there. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of these campaigns. So equals, and this was our spend. Campaign 2, spend. Campaign 3, spend. And then let's get our total amount here, which is our budget. And there we go. So we could create a chart like this for each one, but then we'd have to reset all the things. So often in this case, it's faster to copy and paste an existing one. So I just did Control C, and I'm going to do Control V, and then bring this over here. And you can see it kind of snaps into place there in line with this one. And so if I double click here, now I'm just going to change our data. So here we had E to E, which was the total. So I need to change this to B. So I come back here. Let's just change this to B in our data range and then hit enter. And then it should already populate. So you can see it's a little different. And then let's go ahead and do it for these other ones. So snap into place, setup. This one should be C. And then finally, let's go to this one. This one should be D. There we go. So you can see those are all aligned now. And so we have our first section in place, marketing campaigns. Our 1, 2, 3, just like that. So if we hide the grid lines, you can see how clean and nice that looks. So let's add these back. And let's go ahead and go to our next section. So there's this line between, there's a couple ways we can do this. So one is we could make this whole row do something like that, which that looks pretty wide. So then we could resize and we could go as low as 2, like that. Another thing we could do is we could use a border. So again, I can go over here, pick this, click on this, pick this color, and then maybe do like this thick border, and I can do at the top, and it shows up just like that. And that's probably what we'll stick with. So I'm going to go ahead and resize these rows above and below. So I just clicked and dragged, resize. Let's go to, let's say 10. And then probably do something with this one as well. This one's a little big like that. There we go. All right, so let's take a look now. So now we need these sections. So I'm going to start with this over here, and then we'll go to that one on the other side, the CPA and acquisitions. So for this, we need some totals. And so let's go ahead and do that. Go over here, and let's see what we have. Impressions, clicks. So impressions, clicks, acquisitions, and cost per acquisition. So acquisitions and CPA. So impressions is right here. So it's just gonna be the total. So we could do sum here. So we could do this even directly on the dashboard, but since we're doing the rest of the numbers here, I'll just go ahead and do this as well. And so this one could be our reference like that, or we could use our table references. This would be impressions, just like that. And then let's go ahead and do the rest of these. So if I use the table references, then it makes it a little faster just to type here, and you can do sum data. If we open that, then we can see all the ones there. So then we can kind of click and select. So there's our acquisitions. And then finally, CPA. So if we go here, we have our spent, our acquisitions. So there's a couple of different things that we could do here. So we could calculate here if we determine our total spend. Another thing we could do is we could add a helper here. And so let's just insert a new column here, and we'll call this CPA. And then this will be our spent divided by our acquisitions. And then we can drag that one down. And so that gives us our cost per acquisition by campaign and quarter. So that should be useful later. So at this point, we could just do an average on this CPA. Now, the one bad thing about that is we're not getting a total average. So there's a couple different ways to calculate averages. And so this one may be better to actually do a sum on the spend. So data and then spend divided by our sum of acquisitions. And so there we go. Let's go ahead and go here. So essentially what we have here is a section. Let's do something like this. And then I'm going to merge just horizontally because I'm going to do 2 lines. So this one I'll call impressions. And then let's select those. We'll horizontally and vertically line those. And then let's change the background to our dark one. And then change it to white. And then we'll pull this impressions amount in here. Now this one, it looks like it's that orange or yellow. So let's go ahead and do that. Pick it just like that. And then we probably need to bold both of these and go a little bit bigger. So maybe something like that. Maybe this one will go a little smaller and this one a little bigger. Something like that. There we go. So let's just go ahead and copy and paste this. And we'll leave a line in between like that. And then let's go ahead, make sure those are deleted. And then this one will be clicks, acquisitions, and CPA. So let's get those there. So if you noticed, I do a lot of copying of charts, copying of these sections, and that makes it much faster to do something like this. So you're not building it from scratch each time. And so I'm selecting these, hold this down, hold down Control, select another row, and so forth. And then that missed there, so let me try this again. Right click and resize rows. Let's go like to 10, like that. And there we go. So there's our next section. So next, let's look at our CPA by campaign. And so they have the last 12 weeks. So we could do that, or we could do a total and then acquisitions by campaign. So let's start with our CPA by campaign. So let's go back to our helper, and then let's do our CPA, and then let's grab our campaigns here, copy, paste. So we need our CPA by campaign. And so again, with the CPA, we could do an average. So let me just do an average overall, and let's see if this actually shows up as anything different. So you can see our overall average, or our simple average, is a little different. So basically what we're doing here is we're getting an average CPA, right, of our spent and acquisitions. And then here, if we do an average, we're averaging the average. So that isn't quite as accurate as doing this. So that's just one thing to keep in mind, is there are different ways to calculate those averages, and it does result in a slightly different number. So we're going to do the same thing for here. So we're going to do a sum ifs, and we're going to take that data, and then let's do spent, then data again by campaign, and then select that campaign. And so that will give us, what do I do here? Oh, I have a extra bracket there. So there's our total spent by campaign. And then I'm going to divide this by our acquisitions. If I can, acquisitions, there we go. And then drag this over. And then we'll go ahead and center this, turn that $sign. And then there is our CPA by campaign. And so that kind of shows the totals. So we could either do totals like that, or we could select if we wanted to only show by a certain quarter, in which case we'd do this quarter as well. So we could do, for example, data, and we do quarter and do Q1, for example, and go forward like that. So obviously we'd also need to add this then here as well. And then there it's slightly different. So we'll just go ahead and go with the overall, just like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and select this, insert chart. And then we're going to change this one to a bar chart, just like that. And then let's copy and paste that over. So copy, paste, and then let's go ahead and get rid of this original here. And then let's edit this. So customize chart style, get rid of the background there. And then we'll resize this. And then we can drag this up here. And then we can either use the title inside here, or we can pull it outside. So it depends upon how much customization you want on this. So let's actually double click here, remove that one. And then let's change this. So if you double click on an element in a chart, it takes you right to that section. So it makes it easy to edit it. So example here, I think maybe we'll go to will be none. There we go, something like that. And then let's change that color, text color, to white. And then let's click on this one, same thing, change that to white. And then I think we'll get rid of this and we'll do that title outside of this. And so let's pull this down a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on this. So double click on this, and then I'm going to make this a little bit smaller just so we can get these campaigns in here. And then maybe bold those, make them a little smaller. There you go. So let's take a look at this. So this one I have different colors. So we have a new one here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this real quick. And then let's come over here. And then what we can do here is we can actually format a data point. So this fill color, I'm going to add our new color. And so there you go. And then this one, see if we can get it there, data point. This one will be our yellow. And then our top one, let's just do a white or maybe a light gray, something like that. And then let's make sure we get rid of our border color as well. There you go. So then up here, let's do our title. So CPA by campaign. And then let's make this white, bold, check our font here. And then center that there. And there we go. So we can also change the color on these as well, if it'll get me there. So there we go. Maybe make this darker, or we can even change it to maybe that. So you can play around with those till you get what you like. And then over here, let's do acquisitions by campaign. So acquisitions by campaign is 4 and 3. So I'm not going to copy and paste because otherwise it's going to do that merge as well. So let's just do this. And I think I'll come down in size, maybe up in size. No, I think I'll just do 10 of both of these. There we go. And bring that up there. Maybe make this a little shorter. Then we can also label these as well. So let's go to series. And then let's add data labels. And then maybe do rounded currency. There we go. And then let's add our acquisitions. They have them here as a pie chart. So we have our CPA bad campaign here. So we need acquisitions as well. And so let's just go ahead and copy and paste. And then this will be acquisitions. And then let's do just our acquisitions here. And then pull that over. And then this is a whole number, not a currency. So let's do that. And then there is our acquisitions. So let's go ahead and select this, insert chart. And then we can go ahead and change this one to a pie chart. And then let's see if switching this works. There we go. So I'm going to copy this, paste it over here, and then we'll adjust that down. Pull that up there, get rid of this one. And then let's get these numbers here as well, profit per campaign. And so let's just do the same thing here. Profit. And then this would be our net sales. So let's just change this to net sales. Drag that across, change this to currency, get rid of our decimal places, and then we'll put that down here. So let's go ahead and add that real quick. So profit per campaign. Let's add another line here. So let's copy this, paste that down here, and then we're going to do campaign 1, 2, and 3. Let's just use these colors as well. Looks like that's what they're doing there. So let's start from here and let's go through E and we'll do campaign 1. And then let's just copy and paste. And then this will be 2 and 3. And then let's get those colors in there. So I think this one we did like that. We'll do our yellow and then we'll do our kind of tealish color there. And then let's change that up like that. And then what we'll do is we'll finish pulling this up here, get rid of a couple extra of those. And then let's get these in here. So profit per campaign, grab those. And we're about wrapping up, as you can probably tell. Let's go ahead and center these. Change those, change this to white, bold, and maybe go to 12. So maybe we'll go to the left-hand side like that. And then let's go ahead and delete this last row. And then let's change this here. I'm going to merge that. Let's go white. So this one is underlined. So we can do that by going to format and then text and underline. Bold. And maybe something like that. And there's that. And then let's go ahead and set this one right here. So none, none. Let's get rid of this right here. And then let's look at our colors. So they have the same colors, looks like, on here as well. And so let's go ahead and do that. And so let's do labels will be value. And then see legend. Let's get rid of that. None. And then all we need to do now is get this in here and align those colors. So campaign 1 should be white or this gray. Campaign 2 will be this yellow. Campaign 3 will be that teal. So there you go. And then that is in the place there. And then one thing we may want to do here is, it looks like that color is a little bit different. And so I think it's maybe a little bit lighter. Let's see. Check this out here. Yep, looks like it's a little bit lighter. So then we can just come back in here, change this to our main color, and then a single width, and just do vertical borders like that. So at this point, let's go ahead and remove our grid lines and see how we're looking. So this looks pretty slick, pretty good now. So at this point, if you want to, you could be done. Obviously, this already looks slick. Or you can go back through and do little adjustments if you want to resize some of these to get them the way you want. If you want to play around with downloading as a PDF, and so then you can play around with this and see how that looks. And maybe you want to add more rows at the bottom, for example, with that color. So at that point, you're going to do 20, something like that. And then we come back up here, download again. You can see it's just filling some space in there. And you can set, the margins there. So you can kind of set this to where you have the report you want to download or export if you don't want it just in the Google Sheet. All right, so that is it for today's video. Make sure to check out the other videos on the channel for more tutorials on both Google Sheets and AppScript. And as always, have a great day.